All right, so the South African trade union Saftu wrapped its three-day elective conference that was held in Boksburg, Gauteng this week. Zwelinzima Vavi was re-elected as the Federation's General Secretary, retaining his previous position when he beat his opponent Moses Mautsoe. Ruth Ntlokotse, Numsa's second deputy president, was elected to the position of Saftu President. Now, Saftu was formed in 2017, and leading up to this elective Congress, the Federation found itself in the throes of internal struggles. We now speak to the newly elected Saftu President, Ruth Ntlokotse. Good to have you, and congratulations on your new position.
Good morning, Leanne, and your viewers, and thank you so much for having us.
It's a pleasure. So you and your team of leadership have been given yet another opportunity to lead through an elective process of the Congress. Does that resolve Saftu's problems that shrouded the organisation leading to the election?
One thing that you need to applaud about the Saftu Congress is that it has actually elected 4 women out of 6. And which is something that we pride ourselves, and we are demonstrating that as a federation, we are very much serious in terms of advancing the women interest. And coming back to your question, the Congress took stock about the founding principles and resolutions of our inaugural Congress, and to such an extent that we reaffirmed the decision taken by their inaugural Congress. And we also reflected about the squabbles that we had in the past, and we came up with a way forward on how best we can be able to resolve those issues. And we are confident that the demonstration that was presented by the unity that was presented by our affiliates after those heated, robust discussion, that we are still equally committed in building Saftu. And we are still relevant as we have committed in our founding inaugural Congress.
I suppose the unity is yet to be seen, because what we observed was not necessarily a picture of unity at the time. I mean, there was a lot going on at this particular elective conference. I mean, let's just get to Irvin Jim. He had threatened to take Saftu to court when he brought a motion that a suspension be lifted against the 4 national office bearers who were suspended by the NEC so that they could contest the elections. So my question to you is, we know that was put aside for the elective conference, but is it still standing, or has the matter actually been resolved?
Okay. I think one thing that you need to be mindful of, Leanne, is that Saftu is still a new baby. We are coming from our second Congress. There are limitations in terms of our constitution. There are provisions that are not guided by the constitution. And to such an extent that our constitution, it does give a provision that we can discuss any other matter that is before us, meaning that the issue of the suspension of the 4 national office bearers, in terms of the powers from the Constitution, they are vested to the National Executive Committee, and the matters to be finalized by the Central Executive Committee. Indeed, the National Congress is the highest decision-making body, and the matter was brought before it. And the discussion was very robust. And I mean, if discussion are very robust, people will further advance their argument. But one thing that we can confirm is that the matter was finalized. Indeed, there were 2 motions, and the Constitution does give guidance that if there are 2 motions and they're both moved and seconded, they must be subjected to a vote. A vote was taking place, and the Congress came to a conclusion that the National Executive Committee acted within its powers, and it has actually reaffirmed the suspension of those 4 national office bearers. And over and above that, there was an issue as to whether these 4 national office bearers, suspended 4 national office bearers, should participate in election. And that on its own, it's not provided in our constitution. And there were discussions that took place, and to such an extent that there was a legal opinion sourced, and the conference came to a conclusion not to deprive those 4 national office bearers to participate in the process of election. And they participated in the election, and we can confirm that 2 of them, they were elected to the position of the first deputy president, which is Thabo Thabo Mautsoe and Comrade Motswari. She was re-elected to the position of the treasurer. So, which is one thing that we can say that that's how the Congress resolved on this matter.
So let's talk about what's at play here, because obviously your appointment and that of Zwelinzima Vavi, Secretary General, who is seen as your ally, and of course the defeat of Max Shabalala and others, many are saying that this is slate politics. What is your response to that?
When people are going for elections, workers are more than welcome to express their preferences. And I must indicate that indeed there were preferences that workers portrayed and demonstrated before the elections. And at the end of the day, workers, they've decided as to who should emerge. And the Congress was very firm that it was the process before the elections, and those preferences were no longer going to be applicable. And to such an extent that there was an undertaking, a commitment made on behalf of the newly elected national office bearers that we are committed to serve all affiliates, and no affiliates will be reduced to stepchildren, and irrespective of the preferences that were demonstrated before the elections, which is something that we believe that it's democratic. Workers are more than welcome to express their views. But the one of being an ally, I can say that these were the preferences from workers.
So certainly we were hoping that Zwelinzima Vavi would also be chatting to us, but it doesn't seem that he will. So let me ask you this question. I mean, obviously, one of the most notable developments from this was, and it played out between high-ranking leaders within the Federation. I mean, Zwelinzima Vavi and Irvin Jin, high-ranking leaders, as we say, and actually, at the end of the day, comrades that go back many, many years, and they are both major forces within the Federation. How do you think they're going to move past this period going forward? Is there going to be a breakup, or do you believe you can find the unity?
Okay, let me answer this question in this form. The Congress was very much firm, firstly, about how this issue was captured in the media, to elevate certain individual who happens to be the General Secretary of Saftu and the General Secretary of Numsa above the organization. We spoke about the cult of personality, and we had to remind each other that no one is above the federation. So meaning that we cannot reduce the discussion or the debates that are taking place and be attributed to certain individuals. If discussions are ensued, I mean, people cannot agree on everything. And one thing that makes a union or organization to be firm, I can attest from the one that I'm coming from, which is Numsa, it's that people forever continuously have differences of opinion. And that doesn't mean that if people are having differences of opinion, they will be attributed to a fallout, and they will be attributed to that others will move out of the federation. And the commitment that was demonstrated by all affiliates in that Congress, it was to build the unity of Saftu, it was to build the unity of the working class. So for now, we can confirm that towards the end of our Congress, no affiliate has actually declared that they're not committed by the resolution of building unity in the federation. So the issue of Saftu, Numsa being moved out of the federation, I mean, Numsa is I think they gave birth to Saftu. And I don't think it's just an easy decision that Numsa can just move on it by mere having differences of opinion during the Congress. I mean, workers from Numsa, they must come out.
We have seen, unfortunately, these kind of tussles taking place before. I mean, we don't have to just bring up this organization as a matter of interest. We've seen factionalism. We've seen factionalism at play, and it is devastating when you start seeing factions within one organization start eating at the organization, and then at the end of the day, those that suffers are the workers who you are meant to be representing. So this is a serious question. I mean, do you honestly believe that all of these issues are going to be cleared and that you can work together? Because, like I say, it's the worker that's going to suffer the brunt of it all.
If you can look at the history, especially of some of the unions, I can talk about the one that I'm coming from, which is Numsa. We went through a number of challenges, and the members at the end of the day, they give guidance and direction as to how their union should be managed. And we are of the firm view that even yesterday, the Workers' Parliament, they've pronounced as to what direction should their federation take. And they give us marching orders as the newly elected leadership that our primary task and focus is to make sure that we prioritize workers' interest and forget about spending most of our time in boardrooms. If we spend most of our time in bedrooms, that's where we will, because we'll ended up addressing petty issues. So we came to a conclusion that we need to be a campaigning federation. As we are a campaigning federation, we need to move out of our boardroom, meaning that we will be advancing issues that are affecting workers as our primary concern.
Yeah. All right. So my final question to you is, in terms of Zwelinzima Vavi, I just have to ask this question. Sitting as an elected Secretary General of Saftu now, does it mean that he's been absolved of the allegations of the misuse of funds, or is that still hanging over his head and pending?
Okay. Remember, the National Executive Committee took a resolution of entrusting the National Finance Committee to investigate the allegations. And the report was presented, the preliminary report, it was presented to the National Executive Committee. And there were some gaps in terms of that report. And the report, it was sent back. And we are confident that the first National Executive Committee, they're going to give us the final report in terms of that investigation report. And the National Executive Committee will give guidance as to what needs to happen in moving forward.
All right, we'll have
for now, we can say that the matter is still within the competency of the National Finance Committee.
All right, Ruth, thank you. Thanks again for talking to us. Ruth Ntlokotse is the newly elected Saftu President. And this is, of course, a conversation post Saftu's elective Congress that took place this past week. All right, 5 minutes past.